Good afternoon. Welcome to the restoration station. My name's Pete and it's Thursday the 25th of March, I want to say, 2021. This video is about rafter ties. Oh yes, how exciting. You can see this part of the building that I'm in has no rafter ties. So I'm going to be adding some in and I'm going to be talking about the reasons why and how I'm going to be doing it. Hopefully by the end what I'm going to have is some exposed rafter ties which will look quite cool. Now I'm not going to divulge my plans for this part of the building. I'm still in consultation with the architectural drawer man, building control and also the planning department. So while I'm waiting for all of that sort of thing to take place, I do need to make sure that I'm getting this part of the building structurally stable. In my first video, I did a walk around of the building and I showed you some of the issues that this is having. Over the last 150 years, is the centre of the roof has begun to sag along the ridge in the middle. I'll show you more about that in a minute. Without the rafter ties, that's all the roof is. It's just two sides of a triangle and you need the base to tie it together. So the forces are acting outwards on these walls and the walls are actually bowing. Because of that, there is cracking in the mortar as well on either side. More on this side because it's above the window and also because of some other structural issues further down the wall. So there's a wooden lintel that's a bit old, it's a bit rotten, there's some brickwork which is quite degraded and you've almost got a sort of subsidence issue or a settlement issue halfway up the building. The first job to get all of this sorted out is to get the roof stable so that it's not acting outwards anymore. With the rafter ties on, it'll then be held firmly in place. The weight will then be getting transferred down through the walls vertically. Now I've had a word with my structural engineer. He's confirmed that I don't need to have any calculations done, which is very good. So I suggested to him a certain thickness of timber, a certain grade of timber, which I'll talk about in a minute, and he said, yeah, your ideas are about right. And that's great news because without needing calculations, it means I don't have to wait sort of 4 or 5 weeks to get these things approved before I can then stabilise the structure. It's something that needs doing pretty urgently. Now a rafter tie, to get technical on you, can't go any higher than 1/3 of the way up the rafter because then it starts to lose its effectiveness really, and it then starts becoming a collar tie, which is something else entirely and something I'm not going to talk about in this video. So 1/3 of the way up these rafters, 4 timbers going across. The timber that I'm using, it is 4 by 2 inch timber, so 2 inches thick, 4 inches deep, C24 grade timber as opposed to C16, and the difference there is C24 is a slower grown, denser wood with less imperfections, so that means that it's more suitable for structural applications, and also because these are going to be exposed, less imperfections in the wood mean that it should look nicer as well, and I may well paint or stain the wood later on down the line. I didn't want too many timbers exposed because otherwise it might look a little bit overkill, but obviously I need to have enough to do the job. Right, here we are outside, and you can see this part of the building that I've just been talking to you from, the ridge is sagging quite noticeably compared to the rest of the building, which does have rafter ties. And if we move over here, look at the building end on, more evidence. The wall is bowing outwards, but the gutter is a really good indicator of that. You know, there's a big bow in it, and it's exactly the same on the other side of the building. I won't bother showing you that now, but you can just take my word for it. I'm not lying to you. There are also, above this window, quite a few cracks, which you may be able to see in the mortar just up there, and also under the guttering there are quite a few loose bricks where the guttering is being pushed away from the wall outwards. The fixing points are actually now dragging bricks with it because the middle is wider than the ends, and so where it's attached at the ends the bricks are being pulled out as well. So that all needs to be dealt with. I will talk about how I deal with that cracking in a separate video. So what we'll do is we'll go back up and I will talk about the problems on the inside. And you can see the cracking is apparent above this lintel here, where the walls are being pushed outwards. If I show you along the wall plate here, which is a bit of timber that sits on top of the walls, you can see that that's, but hang on a minute, hang on, what is this? Oh, it's like an old pair of witch's knickers or something. My resident witch leaving her underwear around the place. Hideous. Right, so now you can hopefully see that the wall plate is bowing, and it also appears to be rolling outwards a little bit as well as a result of the forces from the rafters pushing down and out on it. As I said, I'm going to talk about how I remedy the cracks, but before I start taking out any mortar to do that and potentially weaken or disrupt the wall, I want to stabilise the roof first before I start tackling that, so there's an order of works. Now, I want to show you on this side as well, this wall plate. It's quite obvious that it's moved back by about an inch or so about the first section of my index finger. This wall plate was probably built flush with these bricks originally, but now, as a result of being pushed outwards, it's obviously shifted quite a bit. It's not helped by the fact that in the middle of this wall plate, there is an articulation where the wall plate has been joined. There's another one here, and there's one over here as well. And that means that instead of, where one single piece of wood may resist the movement a bit more, these joins have obviously allowed it to move to a greater or lesser extent in places. So another reason that I've decided to have 4 rafter ties in here is because where the wall plate is joined, I can have a rafter tie on either side of the join, and that will definitely, belt and braces, hold it in position. Obviously I've had to consider ceiling heights. Even though these are going to be exposed, you can't have them too low. But what I've figured out, or what is quite fortunate, is that at 70 centimetres up this rafter, it means that I'm going to have somewhere in the region of 2 meters 20 ceiling height. Okay, so now I'm going to start installing the rafter ties. The first thing that I've done is I've created a simple roof angle pitch finder, if you like. It's 2 pieces of timber bolted together with 1 screw initially, and then what I've done is put my spirit level on the bottom, held it up to the roof pitch, using the spirit level to find level. You then move the top timber into place because it pivots on the single screw. When you have found the angle and the bottom is level, you then lock it into place with a second screw, and that then is your roof angle. You know this bottom timber is level when this top timber is in line with the roof. Having marked this 70 centimetre point, knowing that that's my centre, take the sharp corner of this metal ruler, and because the timbers are 4 inches thick, I know that the bottom edge is going to be 2 inches below that centre point, but it's really difficult to mark anywhere in thin air. The corner of this ruler into my 70 centimetre point, and I can see the 2-inch mark below that. I'll then put my roof angle finder up against it, run it down until the bottom edge, which I know is level, is on the 2-inch mark. And then I just follow that bottom straight edge, that bottom level edge along until I get to the rafter. I mark it off with a pencil here, and then follow that line across. And I now know when I get to the end of the rafter here, that is the full level bottom edge of that rafter, and of the rafter tie, and I've put a screw in there knowing that that is my furthest measuring point. What I then do is take my chalk line, which I've hung over that screw, over to the rafter on the opposite side. I get up here with my spirit level, pull the chalk line taut, and when the spirit level is level and the chalk line is up against the rafter on this side, once that's all lined up and level, I then put a screw or mark at the far end of the chalk line on that rafter, and then I know that is my furthest point, edge to edge, of the bottom of the rafter tie. So I'll then go outside, cut the timber off square at that longest length, and then what I'll do is, using these basic roof pitch angle finders, and I've made one for both sides, and I'll have to do this custom for each rafter tie that I install, I will then transfer onto the square cut rafter tie these angles, cut them off, and then offer them up, and provided that everything fits properly. I'll then put a single screw through either end to hold it in place, drill two 10mm wood drill bit holes through both the rafter and the rafter tie, and then install two stainless steel coach bolts at either end. It's going to work, but it's just, do you know, when I said at the beginning I'm not a professional builder, you're going to have to take what I do with a pinch of salt. This is a prime example. Right, so I thought I'd just show you above the wall plate on this side as well, and oh my word, the list of problems is as long as my arm, and keeps growing. So you can see the ends of these rafters are sort of, there's an air gap underneath them. They're supposed to be supported by this outer course of bricks. Where the wall plate is pushing outwards, the bricks are being pushed outwards as well, and where the mortar's failed, they are obviously sinking down a bit as well. So that's leaving the rafter ends unsupported. So they're half on the wall plate and they're half on the bricks, but they're actually only half on the wall plate now. So I will get these bricks rebedded. I'll bring them back up under the ends of the rafters so that there's no gap here, and that will then provide more support, and it will also, with them bedded in properly, stop the wall plate moving outwards as well. And the rafter ties are in, and not a moment too soon either, because they're apparently forecasting 40-mile-an-hour winds tonight, so hopefully the roof is still here in the morning when I wake up. What I'm going to do is show you around quickly. Apologies if the light isn't great. There's no electric lighting up here. I'm using my halogen work light, my LED light, to sort of show you around, and it's blinding me while I talk to you. So hopefully you'll be able to see what's been going on. So there are 3 rafter ties looking at it from this angle. And if I walk over here, you'll see there's the 4th rafter tie. And the way that they're attached is using 2 stainless steel 10mm bolts, done up rather tightly and held very securely in place. Now I did have a bit of an issue a couple of times with hitting nails that have been used to drive the battens and attach them to the rafters from the roof side, from the outside. I don't think it's going to make a huge amount of difference, but it's not ideal to have drilled sort of an extra hole next to my bolt hole, but there's nothing I can do about it, and it's a bit of a guessing game. It's just one of those things, but this timber's very strong. The roof rafters are sound, so it should make a noticeable difference in about 100 years when you come back and look and it hasn't moved anymore. Okay, so thanks very much indeed for watching. If you want to know what I'm doing with this room going forward, please do subscribe, hit the bell icon, like, any questions or comments in the section below. And in my next video, I'm going to be talking about how I deal with where the tarmac road leading up to the church next door has been built against the damp-proof course of this house. So, see you in my next video. Take care. If I never hear the word rafter or rafter tie again, it'll be too soon.